Mr. Johnson, thank you so much for your time today. My name is Megan DeVos, and I am a local high school ESOL teacher in Cherokee County School District. I'm also the department head at one of the schools with the highest ESOL population in our district. And I wanted to talk with you today about a recurring issue that the data is demonstrating and a possible solution for the problem. So the problem would be that nationwide we have about 5 million ESOL students. ESOL students would be an English learner, is a student who needs assistance in their reading, writing, speaking, or listening in order to be successful in their academic courses. So in the state of Georgia, we have about 8% of our student population is represented or served through ESOL. And in Cherokee County School District, we have about 4,000 students, which mirrors that 8% that we see statewide. As you'll see in the handout that I've made for you, this graphic here at the bottom portrays quite a chasm of performance between non-English learners and English learners. And this is a deeply impactful reality for our English learners because 20% of their course grades in the milestone courses is constituted by their grade on that exam. So if they are failing with such consistency on this exam, they're consequently also failing those courses oftentimes. Well, the milestone courses being required for graduation, we're seeing those milestone courses also affect their graduation rates, which I have for you in the longer policy analyst paper. But in the U.S. Department of Labor and Statistics verifies that not graduating from high school tremendously impacts their susceptibility to unemployment, or if they do graduate, the opportunity to get better jobs and thus better salary. So historically, the Lau versus Nichols 1974 court case ruled that language assistance is a civil right. And the No Child Left Behind exposed achievement gaps with English learners that Race to the Top, of course, then tried to provide financial assistance for those schools that were closing the gaps, all of which now, as you know, is represented or consolidated or updated in ESSA, which was taken into effect in 2015. And it's now continues to be required that all schools report their access data. Access is the standardized test for English language proficiency that all students served through ESOL must take. It measures their growth in listening, speaking, reading, and writing, the 4 domains of language. So all of that is reported to the state as well as students' milestone scores, disaggregated by subgroup. Well, the milestones are intended to measure students' content acquisition of the state standards. It's not intended to measure students' ability to perform in reading and writing, listening and speaking, right? So reading and writing are what we predominantly see on the milestones of what's assessed. But with these milestones intended to measure content knowledge, not ability to read and write, we have to understand that students that need assistance reading and writing are struggling tremendously on these standardized assessments, which have open-ended questions, multiple choice, and incorporate very dense vocabulary. It's an unfair experience, it's unequitable. These students are not getting their civil right met by having to take the exact same standardized test as their native English-speaking peers. So the criteria for solving this issue would be a solution that would generate decreased percentage frequency of ELs failing the milestones and an increased percentage frequency of English learners graduating from high school. This would be measured by annual data from the Governor's Office of Student Achievement. So 3 propositions would be, first, that we design linguistically modified assessments. So this would mean for each of the content areas that have milestones, there would be linguistically modified assessments levels 1 through 6. So the access, the standardized test for English language proficiency, will generate a level 1 through 6, 1 being the lowest, 6 being the highest. I understand that this is tremendously fiscally difficult and probably unrealistic. But also it would generate unreliable data and manipulation because students would underperform on the access so that they would produce a lower score knowing that they could take linguistically easier milestones. So that idea, that proposition really doesn't uphold the value of our data. The second proposition would be to revoke the high accountability, whereas students take the same current milestones, but it does not constitute for 20% of their grade, nor are schools deducted point-wise in their CCRPI on their state report cards. So, but that also would manipulate the rigor, and that if teachers knew they were not being held highly accountable for the performance of their English learners, they might invest less in those students. And if students knew that their score on the test was not going to affect their grade in the course, they might underperform. So that would also cause a manipulation. So the proposition that I would like to bring to the table, as you can see in the document I have for you, is that an algorithm be developed that take into account students' years in ESOL, their course grade, their access score, their milestone score. These different factors would generate a scaled score, but the raw score and the scaled score would both be submitted to the state to track data, but this would empower students to have an equitable opportunity for success. I think that we would see a decrease in failures and an increase in graduation rates as measured by the annual data from the Governor's Office of Student Achievement. So the allies, the people that I think you would find support for in this policy would be civil rights groups, some students, parents, and teachers, newcomer and immigrant communities, which constitute a tremendous body in your constituents. But some of the people that might oppose this would include oppositional groups such as advocates for extreme consistency and measures of accountability, and those that might not be in favor of using tax dollars to invest in the success of immigrant students. However, I really believe that this student population is one who needs an advocate. This is a vulnerable student population, and as you can see, right now they're receiving equality. They're receiving the exact same supports as everyone else. So native English speakers and someone who's brand new to the country and new to the language is taking the exact same milestone assessment. And I think that we need to transition into justice and equity, providing different supports for those students to have the same opportunity for high school graduation. So as long as the Georgia milestone assessments are employed, I believe that we need to put a placeholder into effect to empower the student population to be successful, because they are working hard. They are not mentally deficient in any way. They're simply learning the language, and so we need to give them ways to demonstrate their knowledge differently. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to talking again soon.